How is everybody today? You well? Let's do it again. How is everybody today? You well? Woo! There we go. There we go. My name's Simon Dixon. This is Aporva Baxi, and together we started DixonBaxi. We're going to do about 6 or 7 hours of the history of our work, and then maybe a bit of champagne afterwards. So if you're happy with that, we'll get going. So we do a lot of different things. Our basic job is to use creativity to improve things, to make things better. So we do everything from strategy to ideation. I'm going to have to start again, aren't I? I have to wait for everybody. So we do strategy, ideation. We do lots of different types of design, how it's applied to the world. It's very digital first. And this is what drives the company. It's the kind of raison d'etre or principles. You may call them values, but they're the things that we hold true. And what they do is they sit underneath the work that we do, and they help us make decisions, both good and bad, about the type of work we do, who we work with, why we're working, and how that work works for people. And probably the most important to us is this idea of being brave. And really, our contention when we're working with clients and we're doing branding projects is brave brands change the world, and our job is to help create them. But the idea of being brave is also a rallying cry to us, which is, in order for us to get better at our job, we've got to try new things. We've got to take creative risks. We've got to avoid the idea that we've atrophied. So we're using that as an idea for all of us collectively to push ourselves. And this is the work. We'll show more than this. But this is the output. It shows up in many different ways. And our feeling is we'd like to have style, but the work is specific and adaptable to the clients and the companies that we're working with. And that shows up all over the world. We might be working in South Korea, South America, North America, Europe, lots of different places. So we're going to go back in time. So the agency was started in 2001, which is a very long time ago. Aporva and I were 12 when we started the agency. We weren't really, but we looked 12. So this is what we looked like when we started the company. We started in a small studio, a small desk. You can see it here, actually. That's me with my fantastic laptop, thinking I'm king of the world. It was amazing. And we've always felt that the magic between myself and Aporva is where the company lives. It's not Dixon and Baxi, it's DixonBaxi is an idea. And now we share that space with 50 other people. Rachel is over here in the corner. We'll give a wave. That's our MD. So there's lots of people who make DixonBaxi awesome. I know you're thinking, we look like dogs, don't we? And we were. We still are, unfortunately. But the question is, what were we thinking? I mean, in many ways, like, what do you think when you start an agency? But there was a few things we were thinking, and these are the kind of 4 things that came through our mind as we started to think about the agency. One was design for life, and that means 2 things. One is designing as a creator who pulls something out of themselves to give to the world, so it's a very personal thing. We see it as a life-defining thing to be creators, but we also like the idea of designing for real life, everywhere. And we like this idea of the power of democratized design, to design at scale, to reach lots of different people, and design for everyone, because we think that's more powerful. We obviously like niche work, and we obviously love the fact that we're working in Shoreditch in East London, but we want to work everywhere for everybody. But what we don't want to do is have to compromise and be mediocre because we're speaking to hundreds of millions of people or billions of people. So that drives the kind of overall feeling. And this is a little triangle that it creates. So it's strategic, hopefully transformative, meaningful, so it's driven by ideas. It's about scale, diversity, share of perspective, range, and it's worldwide. And the idea is brave, original, and remarkable. On our terms, we're not suggesting we're better than anybody else.
And one of the core principles that we've always had is the idea of rejecting convention. It's something that's baked into everything that we do, and we believe that creativity should challenge the norms and challenge everything that's in the world and try and make a better version of that. And when we began way back in 2001, we wrote a list. And lists are really powerful in that it defined and catalyzed exactly what we believed in. So we wrote a list of things we won't do and a list of things we will do. So we wouldn't believe our own hype. We wouldn't work just for money. We wouldn't follow. There's no BS. But we will try and be original, define our own destiny, design for everyone, design everywhere, things that Sai just spoke about. And those things are still true 23, 24 years later. So it's really important for us to have principles and ideas that we believe in. They're the values that drive us. So the work that we do, the things that we make, are rooted in the principles that we believe. And so, over that time, 23 years is a long time. In the first sort of decade, we had a studio. We were doing well. We were really busy. We had work from all over the world, and we thought we were doing a really great job. But there's a big but, and I think that comes when you're working across time. Things change. The world changes. We need to adapt. And we felt that we needed to say no to a few things. And saying no is really important. It can seem negative, but actually by saying no, it defines what you actually do. So there's a power to that. It allows you to curate the experiences, the projects, the things that you want to do. And it was a moment in time for us to think about what the agency was about and where we'd want to take it.
And the reason for that is we were making bad work. So we got too busy and we were doing work for work's sake and we were making money, but we weren't thinking about what we wanted to do. And being busy isn't successful on our metric. So our friend here, Bruce, obviously it was a fantastic job cutting his head out and making him move, but it wasn't really the type of work we wanted to do. And it made us think about what we did and didn't want to do. So we didn't want to pitch. We didn't want to work kind of bullshit. We don't like pessimism. We didn't want to work with toxic clients. And on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is evolution and 10 is revolution, we want to work in the 5 to 10 space, so we're pushing things further. So what we did was resign 6 clients. And ourselves, our bank manager, our friends and family thought we were a little bit crazy, and maybe we were. But what it did was it created space. It allowed us to go back to what was important to us. And better for us, success is about being better at our jobs, improving the quality and craft of our work, the reach so we could work in countries and places we haven't before, the idea that we can get culturally involved in that work. So this is our head of design systems, Dan, in Finland, literally getting his hands dirty with paint. It meant we can dive into the craft, so the grids, the typography, the tracking, the things that make the small details and the beauty of work. And inside that is the passion for the projects. This is a project for the Premier League, which is football, something that we hold dear. So we're working on things that emotionally move us and excite us. And that allows us to make things that are more expected. This is the Pyeongchang Olympics in South Korea. So rather than it all be snow, we did it in a style of K-pop, which represents their culture. And you can do something different. And it allows us to have greater range. We can work in lots of different industries and places and sectors, and put things inside our work which have meaning. So doing the right thing at a grassroots level, sustainability, doing the right thing. And it has to work. The projects as I said, we work on are at scale. So we want things that have high fidelity, detail, whether in the real world or in your hand. They have to work, and that part of it is super important. As is the authenticity of the people we design for. This is a football club in the north of England, in Liverpool, called Everton. And it matters to those fans, and it matters to the people we design for. So designing for the people is our raison d'etre. We really care about that.
So what happens in 2025, bringing us to the present day? We are in our 24th year, or approaching that, which is a hell of a long time to have an agency. If you can imagine the amount of change that's happened in the world, we've had to adapt to that. We're 50 people, we're based in London, and the 80% of our work is international. So although we're based in London, we work with businesses and brands and cultures and people all over the world, which is super exciting. And the 2 billion number, unfortunately, is not our billings. That would be an amazing thing. What it is the amount of people that interact with the work that we create. And it's slightly crazy to think about that number. These people may not know we made the brands that they use or that they interact with, but we really care about the responsibility of what that means, the delightful moments and how it fits into people's lives. And when we think about who makes that, we really care about the people in the studio. That blend is really important to us. And we think about the team in terms of mindset. It isn't just about the work. So when we're hiring or bringing people into the team, it's about, are they optimistic? Are they empathetic? Are they open-minded? Are they progressive? These are the types of things that we want to have conversations with creatives about, and it adds energy to the whole studio. And so this is what it feels like. We've got a whole bunch of people in the studio, and they're all moving around and talking together. Obviously, you guys will be familiar with what that feels like. But the real challenge is to create the space where it feels democratized, where everyone has a voice, whether you're the intern, the head of production, the head of creative. And there's a really amazing energy. And what we really believe, and this is something that's been part of the agency from the beginning, is that it's home to 18 different nationalities. So if you think about that amongst 50 people, you've got tons of perspectives, diverse opinions, lots of ideas. And that brings a level of change, a level of culture. And certainly because we're working at scale with brands all over the world, it makes such a difference to how we communicate and share ideas. So in terms of how we work, one of the core principles that we really think about is starting uncomfortable. And so that's where we start. It's a really exciting place. It's liberated. It's at the edge of your comfort zone. And if you do that, the process, as Simon illustrates, gets you to just right. That's the Goldilocks moment, essentially, where everything comes together. But if you start it safe, the process may get you to boring. And who wants to be boring? So there's an example of that. We just wanted to talk you through a couple of projects that bring that to life. You may be familiar with Tubi, you may not. It's a US free streaming service. It's I guess it was born to be anti-Netflix. It's to super serve fans and those that are underserved. So it's a really exciting catalog of actually probably the most content on any platform in the world currently. And what was really interesting about them was that a lot of these streaming services, Netflix and so on, do things a certain way. They were challengers once upon a time, but now they've become kind of the giants that need to be disrupted. And Tubi was doing that. So they, a lot of these brands create something for everyone. This was about creating everything for someone. So it was about personalization, individuality, believing in what you love and having no guilt in watching whatever you want to watch. So when we design, we kind of ask ourselves, what does it feel like? What does the work and the brand and the experience of individuality, personality, moving through content feel like? So our walls are adorned with work, and that feeling of being liberated is part of a process that we call being ignited. So it's the opportunity for the entire team to create and explore different things, whether that's what fandom feels like, how you move through content, how you create a level of personality. And creativity is messy. I think we can all agree to that. And it's super exciting to make this work and test the edges of what the work feels like. So this is a brand reaching over 100 million people, but there's still an opportunity to treat it as if it was a brand reaching an individual. And we really like that idea. So there are heaps of sketches and tons of play in that. And then a big part of it is energy. We said that before. Energy over perfection. It's really important to try new things, to have a hacker mindset, to play. And these are some of the motion tests that the motion team do. We have a motion team, experience design team, brand designers, strategists, but they all work together. And although we're designing a product, a streaming platform, we really think about brands in terms of how they fit into culture. You all use brands every day. You make a choice about which ones to use and which ones to feel a part of. And so when we're thinking about the work, it's not just motion for the sake of it. It's motion and stories and experiences that fit into people's lives. So we really want to consider it as part of life and how, in this case, Tubi fits into that. And we try and create systems that adapt and change. So these are systems at scale that work across all sorts of devices and platforms. But we're taking the idea of those things that people are passionate about and turning them into a design language that, in this case, explored how that might transform the logo that we were developing in this case. and it comes to life in so many different ways. But really, doing all that, going to uncomfortable, the just right moment wasn't quite right until we spotted a simple idea. They'd always had this thought about going down rabbit holes. So when you go down a rabbit hole, you get lost, and you find amazing things, almost like Alice in Wonderland. So we created this logo that you see on the left, and inside that is a simple circle. But that circle opens the opportunity to articulate a brand in a really exciting way. So this is the opening signature. It has sound, so maybe you'll be able to hear that shortly.
My guess it will need plugging in. There we go. It's better with sound. If you listen to it long enough, it drives you crazy.
So apart from it driving you crazy, what it does do is it's super memorable. It captures the idea of going down a rabbit hole, and it's kind of the anti-Netflix approach. But creating simple things is hard. We reduce the brand from all that kind of chaos and expression to a few colors, and really it was about the tone of voice, the language, how we use the AI system to find things that are personalized for you, or to bring in illustration that tells these stories of moving through rabbit holes. And we think that brands have to have an attitude and opinion in the world. Oftentimes they can round the edges and lose their direction. So on this journey, we did discover that sharks are on the moon and they're shredded. This is the type of content that they have. It's some crazy films that people fall in love with. But the key for us was that they owned it. It's really important that they have an authenticity inside them. And we created a bespoke typeface. And the whole piece was around keeping it weird, embracing those rough edges, keeping your elbows out and doing it your own way. And we think that that's really powerful for brands at scale. And that's how it kind of comes together as one unified system started from an uncomfortable place.
Cheers, Paul. The other thing we're big fans of is optimism. The world's a hard, dark, rough place sometimes. And I think when you're creating, it's important to feel like you're alive, you're connected to the work. And if you're optimistic, you can have ideas that can change things. Also, if you're optimistic, you can work on projects which are just for the excitement and the fun of it. So this is a project we did with MTV for the MTV VMAs, the Music Video Awards in America. And it's one of the most iconic music nights for the industry. And it has a really defining history in the history of music, because it was started in 1984, and MTV has been there through several generations of people in the music industry, and it's something we grew up on. And there's you can see here, there's lots of different styles. And what we wanted to think about was, how can we get people to fall back in love with it? In a busy, chaotic, kind of crazy world, how do we create something that has high energy, is super emotional, super tactile, and super alive? And you can see the middle there is what we call a campfire. When we get all the work on the wall, we then take it down, we let it out together, and we all share that moment and look at the work, and we talk about what we love. So we don't do critiques where we say, that's shit, I don't like that, I don't like your typography. We say, what do you feel? Do you like this? What do you like? What do you think's missing? So we try to ask questions that are optimistic and open people up creatively, and it means to have better ideas. And then alongside that is this hacker mentality, which is, it's better to make something and see what you've won than sit on the fence and kind of worry about, should I make it or should I not? So we want a high tolerance for mistakes in the studio, where people can make things with no agenda, they know what the brief is, they know what the strategy is, but why not make something? And it means that you can, in a sense, try lots of different palettes, lots of different textures and feelings, and it's like a vibe check, really. It's a feeling check of like, is it something I like? Is it something that personally I'd like to make, but will also work for people all over the place who want to be excited by this event? Because it shows up in the world. We did a kind of takeover of Times Square with lots of kind of what's the actual official term for those screens?
Super graphics.
Super graphics, which is great. Super graphics on a super graphic screen. But the idea is to build something that is evocative and exciting in the real world. And it also has to show up in lots of different ways. So there's applications where you could download your own moon person outfit. You could react to footage. it's on kind of crazy billboards, it's on mobile devices. And then it starts to show up in the real world in terms of things like merchandise, things you can wear, things you can give to people. And it's nice to have a cool hat. You know, it's the sort of thing that people carry around. So sometimes it can be a simple thing that can be arresting. And then it starts to show up in the real world in terms of the event itself. On the left is our client. So one of the things we consider when we're making something is the relationship with those people, because it's just as exciting for them to make that kind of change. And you know, if you know your brand is going to be next to Katy Perry and Taylor Swift, there's something kind of nice about that, regardless of whether or not you listen to their music. But you know that it's part of a lineage of a group of people who've tried to do something creative for decades. And there's something really amazing about that idea of bringing something to the world for the joy of it and trying to entertain and excite people. And this is how it kind of comes together. So when we're hacking all the kind of creative work and all the initial feelings, it does get reduced in the way Aporva talked about, where you have to rarefy it for application and use. But we want to maintain the energy and the integrity of that fire that you have at the beginning. You need to feel that in your hand when it hits the world. So you can see how it's kind of collapsing down from all the kind of sketches into things that still have impact once they're used in the real world.
Thanks, Sai.
You're welcome.
Think about everything so you can design everything. This is about cherishing insight. And there's a project that we did with a company called Rolly. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a pioneering music technology company that actually makes keyboards that help you learn how to play music, specifically on different keyboards. And what's amazing about it is that it's about giving the power of music creation to everyone. And these are technical products that use gamified technology and AR to allow people, from learners to professionals, to play music at the highest level. And our relationship on this project started with the founder, Roland Lam. So he's an interesting individual. He actually studied to be a Buddhist monk in Japan when he was young, and then he learned Sanskrit and Chinese and philosophy, and then found himself being fascinated by music. And so he's had this opportunity to essentially reinvent history. So we all know the keyboard, but he had an idea to transcend what that feels like, and he invented something called a seaboard about a decade ago. And then we subsequently joined his journey about 18 months ago to rethink the brand for the future. And music itself is it's democratized, right? We all love it. We've all got our playlists on Spotify or whatever we're listening to. It binds us, it binds the world, and we really love that idea. But what was interesting about this is that when it comes to learning music, we're probably all pretty scared of that. Maybe some of you are fantastic musicians, but for the most of us, we've tried and stopped. So there's something really empowering and exciting about giving that back to people and releasing essentially the idea of music within everyone. And that was the root idea. That was the insight, so to speak, from learners to, Hans Zimmer, who uses the keyboards. Everyone has the power to really kind of free the music within themselves. And as you can see here, the products are beautiful. They're they're almost Apple-esque. The keyboards light up. The iPad screen has AR technology in it. It matches your hand movements and so on. So there's a real sort of beauty to how you're learning and understanding music. And equally, like the other projects, a big part of the creative journey for us is trusting intuition, trusting what happens in here. There's the little quiet voice that keeps judging the work. Put that to one side and just let it flow. And when we let it flow, we were exploring things around music, what it felt like, how it moved, the pressure, the sensitivity of music, what it made us feel. All of those things were baked into this story. And when it came to the motion, we kind of tracked our hand movements. We tried to mirror what it felt like to play music. We motion mapped, professionals playing. We motion mapped ourselves. And that started to build a language. And the heart of this is motion with intention. Something we mentioned before, it wasn't just moving things for the sake of it. It's that it has a story and a behavior. And these things were explored in how you play the keyboards as well. They're pressure sensitive. You can glide and slide. You can move your hand up and extend a note. And these things start to become part of emotion language. But as part of the journey, you go on that journey, and we created a ton of work. And we realized that actually it wasn't quite right. It wasn't capturing the intent of the brand. And certainly when we spent time with their team, who are based here and out in the States and Japan, we realized that we needed to start again. That's okay to do. I think we all admitted that. But it's a real sort of element of and a moment of focus for us. And so we went back to the keyboard, that pure thing. And we found that there's an eternal signifier and signature in that. I'll play again. Or maybe not. There you go. So these 5 keys, you'll recognize them. It's a pure form. They're eternal, they're timeless. We all can identify with them. And that then unpacked the entire brand for us. And when you see the brand, the big thing about it was the technology. Previously, they talked about the benefits, the things you can do, the technology that drives it. But none of that's important in the face of the human in that. We wanted to put the human back. So gone are the hypercolors. It's all tactile. It's all about material. It's about making the whole technology feel like it's something that you want to be part of. And also, it's about crafting the details. So the color wheel that you see there is derived by a musical theory called a circle of fifths. So our color isn't just arbitrary. It's developed through a Y. So when you play the color, it gives you a palette. And that palette is used across the brand. So those things are really important to us. And those principles, they become part of the vocabulary for the entire brand. And I guess to sum up, this brand has something that we call radical softness. The idea that there is an extreme that we've taken with the technology, that it's something that everyone can use, everyone can play with, but from the packaging to the digital experience to the timeless keys, it's something that brings the whole brand together with humanity. And then it comes together like this, and it's a brand that continues to grow and will grow across the world.
Thank you, Aporva.
You're welcome.
So the other thing we like is being fans. We want to be a fan of the work that we create, a fan of the projects we do, and we want to understand why people love brands. And this idea of being fluent in people is really important to us, because the better we understand people, what they share, the power of difference in a positive way, it means we can track the things that they care about. So this is a project for AC Milan, which is an iconic football club in Italy. And Aporva got this email basically saying, would we be interested in rebranding AC Milan? And of course, the answer is, fuck yeah, absolutely. If somebody that iconic contacts you. And this is kind of our version of what AC Milan is. This is Hullet and Van Basten and Rijkaard. This is who we grew up with watching. And anybody who's into football or soccer will have their own version of that team, the one that matters to them. And it's, apart from the haircuts, if nothing else, it's pretty cool. And the first thing we do is go there. The first thing we do is go meet people. We want to meet as many people as possible to make the reality and responsibility real for us. And that's what happens, is it becomes real. You realize that it's the press, it's fans, it's merchandising, it's Casa Milan, which is their offices and museum. It's Milanello, which is a training ground, San Siro, which is 85,000 people in the stadium. It's their partnerships, their share of voice, the foundations, the community things they do, digital, social, blah, blah, blah. And this list kind of goes along the floor. And you suddenly realize that's an actual responsibility. It's not about logos and typography. It's about things people live and breathe for decades. And it's a multi-generational brand. Oh, good. It's quiet enough for you to hear. So typically, you would think of a football fan like this, and this is 2 hours before the game, which was really nice. Was this chap that's coming up here? He let me in. So this guy here with a flag. Have a look at him. But it shows the passion. But have a look at this chap. This guy. This is what most people think about when they think about football fans. Somebody in a stadium goes every single match, crazy for it, and they are. But of course, success for a global football sports franchise and business is speaking to people in Malaysia and China and North America and South America. That's how you get growth. So what you have to do is serve the people who are loyal and have been there a long time, and also look at new audiences. So this is how we start, and you all do probably the same thing. It's sketches and mood boards, but what we wanted to do is think about how AC Milan sits in culture. Milan itself is a cultural and iconic place, and we started to refine it. We wanted to be a design system that could be more social, more mobile, more digital first, something that is more textural, and it's not about sport, it's about AC Milan. And as Bob was saying, often what happens is you create design systems. In this case, we created a design system that used their color palette. They're called the Rossoneri, which means the red and black. And it was a really beautiful design system created by one of our design directors, Karun, who's an amazing designer on lots of levels. But sometimes you've got to kill your darlings. Sometimes you have something you think is really beautiful, but it doesn't quite work right. And what we did was we did the same thing we did on another project. It's not that we keep making mistakes on projects. It's just sometimes as you're developing, you do have to change things. But often we'll make mood films for ourselves, which we'll share with a client for no other reason than to get our energy up. So we cut a series of films to look at the project differently. And then the client sent this email, which was really cool, until you read this part of it, which is them saying, my career and my colleagues' careers are now in your hands. So basically saying, don't fuck up. And that's a real thing, because our clients, of course, have this massive responsibility. It's their life, you know, it's their careers. So this was the thing that drove it, this idea called Sempre Milan. It means always Milan. It was given to us by
Maldini.
Maldini, thank you very much. I was getting my Italian football stars wrong. Maldini, who is a very imposing man, but he said, once you're part of it, you're always part of it. We thought, that's such a beautiful idea. So this idea that we could serve those people in the stadium, we could represent the best of Milan as a city, the best of Italian culture, and take that out to the world was what drove the project. So this is the logo or crest before and after. Can anyone tell me the difference between those two icons? Anyone? Yes, very good. Someone's got an excellent eye. The only thing we changed on the actual crest was the red to work a little bit better in digital. And there's a reason for that, because that crest has decades and decades of history. And when we rebrand something, what we don't want to do is destroy things for the sake of it. We want to make sure that we're respectful to the integrity of the thing we're creating. So what we did was change everything else. And we created a device which allowed them to have an ownable form, something which was a design system. It gave them voice. It could communicate. Oops, someone's drunk. It'll be me in about 15 minutes after 2 beers. It's a framing device. It's something that can highlight things. It's something that focuses things. It's something that can create messaging. And this is one of the original visuals we created for our client. This is kind of how we do a typical visual. And once they saw it in the real world, in this way that they could live and breathe differently, they suddenly relaxed and thought, well, we could be ourselves. We could be AC Milan. We don't have to be a generic football club. And then we got into the whole process of hacking and slashing and finding a way of building a motion theory that drove the entire narrative. Because it's in Stadia, it's on a mobile phone, it's social media, it's press, it's everything. And these are the early tests to figure out what the language for that is. And as much as anything else, it's fun to try these things. And then it gets rarefied into the language, so once it hits social media, it allows them to tell greater stories, be more personalized, socialized, lets the players have share of voice, let the fans have share of voice. It looks cooler, hopefully. And then it's how it hits the stadium. If you look, I'll point here because you can't see me pointing the screen. But this one here, it says, 11 of you, millions of us, we are the many. Or we the many, should I say. And the idea is when they go out into the stadium, they're passing messaging that's saying it's about all of us doing it together. They put dry ice in. I don't know why, but they put dry ice in. It's also things like making coaches. You know, so you're making things which rock up at another football stadium and are iconic. There was a little thing where we figured out later on that if we made that wing mirror black, it would match the two colors. And it's very satisfying when you see that drive around. And then it's how you bring football into real life. So obviously, not everybody wants to wear a football jersey. So we talk to them about merchandise and licensing and how they can bring it to life. And what they've done is they've worked with Balenciaga, Off-White, and people like that to create fashion-forward ideas which relate to that Milanese fashion culture, but also streetwear. So it brings them to the street, and a kid in Malaysia is much more likely to wear this jacket. And this is really what it's all about. This is our client, Francesca, and the team on the left. And it's about doing it together. And there's something really wonderful when you build a relationship with someone you've never met before from a different culture, speaking a different language, and you share, 6-9 months together. And they sent this jersey to us as a thank you for doing the project, and it hangs in our studio, obviously. But for me, it's not just a project, it's a life memory. It's something that made me, I guess proud of the studio. But the 19-year-old Simon would not believe that we would get to do a project like this. So this is how we judge the work. If we're kind of chatting, we say to ourselves, is it fun? Is it creating wonder? Is it challenging ourselves? Is it original? Is it beautiful? And when I was talking about framing the work, we don't ask ourselves pedantic, specific design questions. We ask ourselves the things that make us think differently. So is it crafted? Is it valuable? Is it delightful? And if the answer is yes, it's a DixonBaxi project. We don't do all of them all of the time, of course. So fast forward to 2025. This is our kind of raison d'etre. So it's about people first, then design, then money, always in that order. If we look after our team, the people at Aporva describe that rich, diverse group of people from different backgrounds, protect them, make them safe, give them the space to develop their careers, they make better work. They make more inventive, beautiful, personal work that we care about. If we do that, people pay us. Sometimes well, sometimes not so much. But at least we're still going after 24 years. The question is, what's next? And we're asked this at every single podcast and meeting and panel. And they say, what's the future? So since we started the agency, all of these things have been invented. So we went from analog to digital, desktop to computers, Uber, PDFs, cloud computing, social media, streaming TV, NFTs, VR, AR. And the exciting one we're all dealing with at the moment, AI. So what we figured out is, in order to figure out our place in the future, what we need to do is take all of those things we care about, our methodologies, our raison d'etre, and how do we use them going forward. So our feeling is this is how the world will kind of play out. At the bottom here is kind of mediocre, commoditized, the kind of not so cool stuff. Then the average, trend-based, the things that people kind of copycat. It's, general stuff. Then you get into the kind of great original, the expertise. And at the top is the exciting part, which is taste, insight, invention, distinction, difference, things that are the kind of human drivers of creativity. And we feel the battle is that way. If you're down at the bottom, you'll get eaten by AI. If you go upwards, at least you'll have space to determine what technology you use, whatever form that is. We believe that if you use the eternal ideals of how you want to make your creativity, new technologies will come along, but you'll give that technology purpose.
All right, well, that's a nice segue into the 10th principle that we have, which is always in beta. So if you remember the list at the start, it's always about rejecting convention, about doing things differently, and always in beta makes sense, right? In a world that continues to change, we have to change with it, or get ahead of it, or stick to our principles and find our way through it. So we really love this idea. And we're working on a bunch of things that are coming out. One of the key things that we love as part of the studio is being entirely open source, or as open source as possible. So we have an intern academy that's been extremely successful, where we graduate new people through the company, and they stay with us hopefully for a long time. But also, we want to share the ideas, share the things that we've learned, rather than gatekeep. And we have 4 projects that will be coming out later this year. The first is the DixonBaxi Way Season 3. So if you haven't seen it, there is Season 1 and 2. The first was a masterclass with Si and I talking. Then we had the whole team talking about everything from imposter syndrome to being in India. Is a more loose and open version of that. We have Essentials and Journeys. Essentials is a book that we made internally to rationalize all of our ethos for the team. Journeys is actually something that the team were always looking for. How do I get to the next level? How do I become a senior designer? How do I move through the agency? So what we did, we wrote a 200-page book that nuances every role in the agency from intern to head of. And we're going to open source that and reveal that digitally. We have a 500-page book called Remix, which is a moment in time for the last 18 months. And lastly, we have something called Super Futures, which is us exploring what's next for ourselves and the work that we do. So I think we've said it, and hopefully you've got it. There's hopefully a room full of awesome people in here, but I think the success that we've had is working with our team. We're working with... someone doesn't agree, I think.
They're going through the champagne.
I know. But, you know, it's... if you do, whatever you create is much more likely to be awesome. It kind of sounds obvious, but if you surround yourselves by positive, progressive, exciting people, it makes such a difference. So we've got a little short edit of a trailer for the DixonBaxi way, which we'll play. It's about 60 seconds.
Making mistakes, take one. Oh man, you could have done a gap there, couldn't you?
That's me.
Be brave. Oh, God.
Cool. And don't fight things you can't control. Focus on what you can change. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. What we try and do is focus in on the principles, the things that we believe in. And that goes back to the two books that we talked about, the essentials, our ethos. That list at the start has become a set of 10 principles. But it's how we share that and the energy within the studio, and journeys, the creative journey that we essentially take. And so we're going to be bringing those to life, and it's just a rich way of sharing our ideas and ideals to us and the world as well.
Oh. Double click there. There we go. I'll go back in time. So the other thing, the last two things. So we've got 15 seconds, so I'll be super fast. If you want to compete creatively, you've got to bring the fire. Whatever else is happening, you've got to just make things and try new things. So the Remix project we're doing is, in a sense, behind the scenes of our work, and it's a way of taking that expression and looking at it and remixing it so we keep ourselves alive. So the idea is, whatever happens in the next few years, we want to be at the edge of what happens with that. So we're making things to make ourselves feel fully charged and energized. And it's great, because you can see it in the studio. It affects the work. And then the final thing is technology isn't what makes the work great. It's the purpose behind it. It doesn't matter what the technology is. So the Super Futures project we're working on, we're using lots of technologies, AI, AR. We're inventing different things, and every single person in the studio has had 2-3 weeks to work on it. And what it's doing is creating another level of thinking in the company which relaxes us about the change. Because change is going to happen, so we'd rather be part of that change than be nervous and standing there thinking, damn, we're going to get overrun. And I think that's part of the reason that we've kept the agency for such a long time, because we still have the same enthusiasm for creating as we did the day we started the agency. And the very, very last thing is we're hiring at the moment for motion designers. So if you know anybody who is particularly cool at that, this is the place to go. If you enjoyed the talk, if you didn't, obviously don't. That's totally cool. But thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. hi. Question time.
Thank you very much for
Packing
your
up there.
presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
we have
course.
a bit of a Q&A
Yeah.
section afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Great.
really enjoyed your presentation.
We go way back. We know each other from like 10
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
That's another story.
Another story, yeah, universe speaking. Anyway, do you remember what was the very first studio project and how it went up? And by the way, don't leave before, right after this, we're going to have a bit of a celebration of our 10th anniversary, so I strongly advise you to stay a bit.
Too late, you've lost them.
Yeah, they're running out. Yeah, this is one of our anecdotes, so I'll keep it short. Our first project, luckily enough, was with MTV again, but it was for MTV2, which is a rock-based music channel in the UK, if you're familiar with it. And it was super exciting because it was the first project that we did together, sort of the one that was the catalyst for everything that we do. And the very short story is that rather than go there with a pitch or a presentation, we actually did a painting in Simon's second bedroom. And we ripped, kind of bits off the walls in Camden music halls, CDs, sneakers, and we essentially created what it feels like for that 16-year-old person in their bedroom listening to rock music. So it was about a feeling and an attitude. And then subsequently, we went on and made that channel, but the whole channel was typographic. There was no visuals. It was made in Flash, so not After Effects, so it had a twitchy feel. And then all the sound design was just completely weird and crazy. So we did, I think, 300 3-second stings. But what was really cool about it was that we actually drew the language from blogs and the audience speaking. And that's why it was powerful. So this is way before Twitter and social platforms and so on. So it was their voice and their language on the screens. And so that was a super exciting one for us. And it captured a spirit and attitude, which I think we try and hold on to. Yeah,
is it still somewhere to be seen online?
No,
or
no. Yeah, it died years ago.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's like
but
that's 24 years ago.
Yeah. It's still a favorite.
All right. By the way, do we have any questions in the audience?
Wow, no questions. Everyone's so
okay.
shy.
That's up to me again.
Sure.
But I really wanted, and I liked 2 points in your presentation that was about starting over.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask, especially, how hard decision it was to start over, because you've invested so much money, energy, and labor
in a project.
Yeah, during the project, where
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like if you're trying to make work that makes you feel alive and makes a difference, sometimes you just have to realize that the creative journey is circuitous and you have to make bad work, and there's lots of ways of making things. So we factor into it. So that's why it's people, design, and money, because sometimes you have to compromise and say you make less money because you spend more time making the work that makes you happy. And that, to me, is what life's about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was not a hard decision to say that.
Well, I mean, we face those decisions all the
Not
time.
really,
I'm sure everyone does, where, we had it last week. We were approaching a deadline, and actually we realized it's not quite right. So the thing to do is to say to the client, which is essentially a partner, hey, you know what, we've got a new creative idea. We need more time to think about it. And it's better to do that, because if we commit to something that we don't feel, we might have another 6 months working with that thing. So,
well, it's actually worse than that, because if you make something that you don't believe in, it goes into the world.
That's right.
And that defines who you are.
Yeah.
So in order for us to sustain ourselves, we have to be relevant. So if we go, right, I can't be asked, let's just make some shit work, and we put it out in the world, we won't get more work.
Yeah.
Or we'll end up making bad work, and we don't want to make bad work. So it seems like it's a compromise, but actually it's an investment in your future. So I think the better your work is, the better the work you'll get, and you can't cheat that.
It's a very nice point of view at this. Another thing I wanted to ask is, so you mentioned you're at the moment 50 people in
50 people.
50, yeah.
And then we had quite a big topic here today at the discussion panel about how to keep collaboration alive in like a world of hybrid modes and work. And how is your studio set up for this? Do you have everybody coming often in the studio?
It depends how you want to collaborate, because I mean, humans have collaborated for thousands of years, and just because we happen to have a bit of technology doesn't change that. What it is that there's this thing about hybrid work, remote work, and whatever, that everyone is doing exactly the same thing. Some people might be on an island working on their own. Other people might be fully in the studio with 100 people. In between is lots of other versions. Our version is we're remote Mondays, 3 days in the studio. We don't work Friday afternoon, so there's no point coming on the Friday. And what we found with our team, and having talked to them, that balance works because the team has the ability to collaborate, they learn better, but there's so many different ways of creating. There's just like thousands of them, incrementally. So what you have to do is decide what your version is, and the people you work with have to agree with that version. There's no right or wrong answer to that, and there's no different to how 25 years ago. You just have more opportunity to connect to people, that's all.
Yeah, we just enjoy it. You know, I mean, I think our team certainly does. They're all pretty young, and they like being together. And that's where that work happens, right? It's on the wall. They can be part of it. But we also, you know, have some of our team, as we said, from around the world. So some of them, you know, may go back home to Lagos for 2 or 3 weeks and work from there, or from Spain or whatever. So the ability to do that is fantastic. So we truly support that. But it's really nice when, you know, the teams are working together in the studio.
Okay, and what would be your wish or prediction for the upcoming decade in the creative industry, if you might have one announced publicly?
What's our prediction for the next 10
Yeah,
years? I've answered this once today. my feeling is you can't predict 10 years. It's impossible. What you can predict is how you meet the world, whether it's this second, tomorrow, a week's time, or a year's time. And I think what you do is you bring all of your experience, all the things you care about, all the things you've done, and in that moment you say, I'm going to do this thing with that knowledge and apply it to whatever you're given. Because if, as we said before, if you look at the slide we showed when we started the agency, we were going from analog to digital, and there's no social media, there was no remote working or connectivity. And if we'd said what's going to happen in 10 years ago, we would not have known. So what we believe is, if you bring the best of yourself and whoever you work with and however you work, you believe in something that matters and then apply that, you'll be okay, I think. But you have to have that thing that's super important, which is you've got to be ready to change. Whatever happens in the next 10 years, because a lot's going to happen.
Always in beta.
Always in
Right,
beta.
always in
Yeah,
beta.
okay.
It's a mission for life.
Anyone who doesn't change will get run over.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And you know, I think it's to find the fire within yourself, right? You have to be your own energizer battery to push yourselves forward, right? You know, don't necessarily wait for others. Do it your own way. And I think, you know, some of the things that we talked about in terms of owning it for 2B, I think we can apply to ourselves as well, is own our own weird, do it our own way.